I'm on George R. R. Martin's blog. I'll put a link in the description box. You can read it for yourself. I'm going to gloss over some of this stuff. But it's called The Adaptation Tango. And he talks about how a few years ago, Neil Gaiman and him were doing a joint event in New York City, and they talked about a whole bunch of topics. But one of them was adaptations and why they're so terrible. He said that was all the way back in 2022, but very little has changed since then. If anything, things have gotten worse. Everywhere you look, there are more screenwriters and producers eager to take great stories and make them their own. It does not seem to matter whether the source material is written by, and he just lists a whole litany of famous writers and stuff. No matter how major a writer is, no matter how great the book, there will always be someone on hand who thinks he can do better, eager to take the story and improve on it. The book is the book, the film is the film, they will tell you, as if they were saying something profound. Then they make the story their own. They never make it better, though. 999 times out of 1,000, they make it worse. Once in a while, though, we do get a really good adaptation, a really good book. When that happens, it deserves applause. Then he goes on and praises the FX version of Shogun and talks about how it's a very faithful adaptation. He thinks that the original author would have been pleased. Both old and new screenwriters did honor to the source material, because he's talking about the 1980s miniseries starring Richard Chamberlain as the engine was a landmark of long-form television right up there with Roots. Why do it over again? When that version was so good, but then he talks about how I'm glad they did. The new Shogun is superb. Better than the old version. I don't know. I haven't. He's like, I haven't watched the 1980 miniseries since 1980. That one was great too. But and then he talks about it. There's a few differences and stuff, but by and large, they're both very faithful adaptations and done very well. And no matter what you think of George R. R. Martin, he is 100% correct on this. Too many times they want to take the story, they want to make it their own, they want to make changes to this character. Well, we're going to do this differently. We're going to update it for modern times. We're going to modern audience, all that kind of horse shit. And then they end up screwing it up, and they end up kind of poisoning the well of whatever the material is, to the point to where you got people who are like, I don't want anything to do with it. And they always try to hide behind, you're an ist, you're a phobe. It's because you're racist. It's because you're sexist. Because we changed this character's race, we changed this character's gender, or so on and such forth. That's the problem you have with it. It's not it's not the fact that it sucks, that we just completely changed everything and screwed it up. We took a good story, we had to put our fingerprints all over it, and we just made it worse. No, it's the fact that, oh, you're a racist, a sexist, homophobe, all that kind of stuff. And they keep doing it, and you still keep, even though it's bombed. It's blown up in people's faces over and over and over again. Now, some of it's the nature of television and movies and stuff. It takes a long time for these series, these shows, these movies to be made. A couple years at least. Depending on the movie, it could be a lot more. So it's like, I understand that there is a bit of a thing where you're like, oh man, if this movie had come out 3 years ago, maybe you guys would have had a chance. But now that it's coming out and everything else has been so poisoned, it's like how people are saying that Furiosa movie. I'm seeing a lot of people saying, well, that movie was pretty good, actually. But because people have been so almost conditioned to be like, okay, well, first off, it's a prequel. Who cares? Secondly, you got this little, skinny girl in the lead role. She's kicking all kinds of ass. There's some people who are like, fuck, female lead, strong female lead, as they say. Who cares? Yeah, all that stuff. Now you've got people who are just, I don't want to see it, because they assume they're going to be lectured during it. They assume that they're going to be, railed at, screeched at, whatever you want to say, however you want to phrase that. But they're going to be yelled at basically for going to watch You Bad Man, blah, blah, all that kind of stuff. And even if it's not true, that's the feeling they have. And I think that's one of the many reasons why Furiosa, for example, or some of the other movies just don't do well at the box office. But anyway, back to this. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here because I'm kind of rambling a little bit. But again, George R. R. Martin is completely right on this. Too many times. Too many times. I mean, how many times can we count? Probably, there ain't enough fingers and toes in the world that someone said, we're going to update it for modern audiences. Whether it's stuff like Roadhouse, which isn't even that old. That was something from the 80s. They had to update it. They had to do this. They had to do that. And you just completely screw it up and you make it unwatchable, pretty much. It's ridiculous. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and quit rambling here. Like I said, I'll link this in the description box. You can read it for yourself. But thank you very much for watching.